We'll get started with our board meeting. Welcome everyone. I'm Susan Barr. Len was back there a minute ago. Just like to begin, hopefully not with the money. Just like to begin by thanking our Comox Valley District Parent Advisory Council, who has wonderfully provided us with lovely snacks, very nutritious, nice snacks this evening. Thank you very much for your consideration, and we too look forward to working with you in the upcoming year. Here's the lovely notes. I don't see them here, and so thank you very much. So I guess we can't really move on until Len is in the room. So everyone looking forward to the summer holiday?
What did you say to him? He's not having it.
I don't know. Last seen talking to Ron.
I saw crutches.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Hibbs. We should all clap for Len. Like when you're on a bus trip. Alan was the last person on gets a round of applause. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. Have a motion to adopt the minutes of May 26th.
Motion to adopt.
Second. Any errors or omissions, Fran?
Question about the item 13.01 about schools now. Wondering if we had included board direction for management to also prepare a report with respect to passenger vans, if that was included. Because there's no reference to it in the minutes. No, not included in the motion.
Wasn't included in the motion.
Should be on.
I don't believe it's included in the motion.
No, it wasn't included in the motion. It would have been a separate piece of direction. So should we include that in the minutes?
For me, and I'm just writing it beside the motion to make sure it's on, pasted in the action item list, but it's not part of the motion.
Okay, so board direction to provide a briefing note regarding 15 passenger vans. So that would be an addition. Any other errors or omissions? Len?
If I could, Madam Chair, just on the I-1, under Secretary's report, the unanimous agreement, as you probably remember, the School Act actually doesn't require that for budgets, for ones on money. So you don't have to pass that motion, so it can just be struck.
Well, we did strike it, though. I mean, we did pass that motion, though. So it is an accurate reflection of what happened.
Sorry, I'm on the wrong spot. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay.
I thought we were finished.
I'm with you now. Okay, sorry. Okay, so any other errors or omissions? No? Okay, all those in favor of passing the minutes as amended? Danny, don't forget to vote.
Yes.
Okay, opposed, and that is carried. I guess I should notify everyone that Danny White, who recently retired on his retirement trip, is joining us via the miracles of teleconference. So that's Danny right there. Okay, so we have the adoption of the agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Any additions? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, opposed, and that is carried. We have no presentations or delegations this evening. So we'll start with old business. We had an opportunity to have... Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I do need to rise and report with respect to our in-camera meeting. We talked about property matters, and we just would like to report on one item that the board had a discussion regarding a potential daycare at Aspen Elementary, and the board will be continuing with our RFP process with respect to that. Okay, so thank you. So the report on grade structure. Last week we had an opportunity to have Clyde Woman, the chair of the committee, come and present the report to us, and we were able to ask a few questions. We did not make any decisions with respect to the report, and so we have it on our agenda this evening to decide what to do, and there is a recommended motion there for your consideration, and look for board direction as to how you would like to proceed with this. Lori?
I do have concerns
that this was put out on here. My impression was that we were going to, as a board, discuss, I think Tom said it so eloquently, whether or not the board has an appetite for this to be put out to the public. So I was a little surprised when I did see that on forum tonight. I'm just thinking we should maybe sit down and discuss how we read that report, because there's only 3 of us sitting in on those meetings.
Just by way of clarification, sometimes there will be an item for the board to consider there. It does not mean that you have to move that motion. We can set it aside and have a discussion as a board if you feel that that's what you would like to do. And I'd like to maybe hear from other members of the board as to whether they would like to have a discussion before we move to any sort of decision on this. Janet?
I too was surprised to see that on there, and so as Tom said, I thought that would come to the board, and we, the board, would have a discussion whether there was an appetite to proceed, to move forward, and ask some questions of management over cost implications and other things. So I'm not comfortable on voting this night to have a board discussion as our next motion, as our next move.
Okay, anyone from this end of the table? Tom?
So I take this as a bit of a prompt for the discussion, as opposed to anything more than that. So using that as a prompt, we've gone through a couple of stages of this process, of which certainly I supported. The one was initially securing public feedback, and we got that through the website and through other places, and tabulated, and everybody had a chance to read that. And out of that rose the decision to move forward with the ad hoc, or the grade structure committee, and they produced that, and that made sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is now just sort of going back to the public and saying, what do you think about this now? Without, I think the key piece is that the public having some idea of what we think about this, because in the end it's our responsibility to make that decision. And if we go sort of straight back to the public, here's what the grade structure committee has done, without giving some indication of where this board is, individually or collectively, it kind of feels like we're going around the block one more time, and putting the onus and the responsibility where arguably it shouldn't be. And again, I'm thinking out loud here that I certainly am not anticipating having a full, and certainly didn't come prepared for a full discussion tonight and say, Tom Weber thinks X, Y, and Z about this. But certainly do think that I should be prepared as of September the 8th to come and say, this is exactly what I think about all the material that's before us. And so that's inclusive of the most recent report by the grade structure committee, but not exclusive of the material that was received prior to that, and other reports that are not only referenced and used by the grade structure committee, but available to all of us as board members. So I think that it is kind of incumbent upon me as a trustee to declare at least a leaning, if not a position, as of September the 8th. And then out of that conversation, we determine whether we have some consensus, and I think going to Lori and Janice's comments around whether there's a belief among the board that there's an appetite to move forward with anything or to move forward with nothing, and then to describe that. But so again, as I said, using this as a bit of a prompt, and that was the intention of it, was a prompt for a discussion. The piece that's missing for me is where does the public get an idea as to where the board sits before we again take the document and say, what do you guys think? Because we have bugs in this place, other than you. What do we think, rather than just sending it to the public? Because not that I'm clairvoyant by any stretch of the imagination, but I suspect that there will be a large group of people who will think A, a large group of people who will think B, and some who will think C. And whether the numbers will be substantially different from a percentage standpoint than we asked for when the initial public consultation, I don't know. I can't predict that, but I do think we owe it to the public to be a little more, to be clear as to our individual, collective perspective. Thank you.
That's it?
That's plenty.
Thank you. Do either of you or Danny have anything?
Well, I think for me, I think we need to go to a public consultation. I think probably because the public felt that the last consultation we had when the grade structure was changed was a bit of a farce because it wasn't really a consultation. It was basically giving them information and not responding. So I would be in favor of going out to a public consultation at this point.
Okay, Fran?
My inclination would be to narrow what's in the report now to 2 or 3 options, which was the original mandate. But given the complexity of the process, the committee came up with sub-options as well. So I'm not sure about the best process, but I would like to narrow it to modified status quo included regardless, because if we do keep status quo, we do have to modify it. So if we have modified status quo and then 1 or 2 other options that we believe viable, because I don't think we need to waste the public's time with options that were recommended as not viable or too disruptive or that just didn't make any sense. And also that would avoid us getting back to square one and having the same process over again. Whereas if we have discrete options, then it also will be clearer to understand what the public is saying, where public input won't be diluted among many different options and vague thoughts. So in terms of, I'm not sure about when or how. I do think we need 2 other important pieces or types of information as well. And once we do decide, or maybe before we decide which options are viable, and one is the detailed financial information. And 2, I would also like to see enrollment figures for tenures. I know the ad hoc committee chose 5, but it really doesn't make sense for me to, in a year or 2, implement something that may not make sense a few years later, because it would be very nice to not have to talk about grade structure continually.
You guys weren't planning on going anywhere this summer, were you?
I was.
No, I think we have to suspend the rules here for a bit here to hear what people think about this. Corinne, do you have any feelings with respect to this?
Well, actually, I had the pleasure of sitting in on all of the ad hoc committee meetings, and it's a group of people who worked very hard at making this report to discuss things that were viable versus not viable. They put a lot of time into it, and while we have consulted the public, this is different to me because now they have presented you what would the models look like. And so I would lean towards putting out to the public for consultation. I wouldn't be averse to doing, as Fran suggested, perhaps the board sitting down and deciding if we believe that what came before us is something that is viable. But having sat through them, these were well thought out plans. They put a lot of time and effort into it, and I would think that the public would like to see and to weigh in on what they think.
Okay, and then for me, I think I would like to put this out to the public by announcing a process for consultation on September the 8th and making a decision by October 27th. But I agree, they did quite a fabulous job, the committee. I was also there for every one of the meetings. And there's a lot of detailed information in there. And I think that the committee would agree that some of the options that are contained in there would be less desirable. And I would like us to pare the list down to have, what does the status quo, one status quo option look like? What does 3 high school and middle school option look like? And what does 2 high school and 3 middle school option look like? And take the rest off that we feel that we couldn't live with. And then ask the public what they think about that. The public has been waiting, I think, for us to ask them what their opinion has been. They've been quite quiet over the last couple of months. I think patiently waiting for this report to be produced and patiently waiting to be asked. And so I do think that we do need to go and ask them what they think about this. In the spring, they were pretty evenly split as to what sort of system they felt we should have in the future for our district. And so I think now that we've had a year of status quo under our belt, now that we have some more fleshed out options here and we've had a committee look at this, I'd like to again ask them what they think we should do. So I think that's what we were elected to do, was to consult with the public and listen to what they have to say. So for me, I could see us over, the summer months somehow paring the list down and the board maybe having committee of the whole meetings with management to talk about, here's our list, could we have some cost estimates, please, with respect to these? And I agree that we did ask for a 10-year plan. And so what does this look like in 10 years from now? And then go to the public with that sort of distilled information in the fall. Okay, so we've all had one round on this. Would just like to ask you guys, if you have some comments, we would love to hear what you have to say. So do you have anything to add at this time?
I guess I could put it out to public. I sat on most of the meetings. It was very clear to me that there was one option that was not viable, and I think almost every person in that room agreed. And it was shown to be non-viable within the first 5 minutes. I don't want to waste people's time with options like that. If you are going to pare it down, they have to be viable. I guess that's where my intention was when I first made the motion, was to take it to the public, a viable option. There's still unknown factors. Full-day kindergarten is an issue. If that one day the government decides that they're finally going to get off the duck and figure out what they're doing about it, that is going to cause grief within our elementary schools with the amount of classrooms that we will need, as well as teachers. Another issue that really was glaring to me was French immersion. That is kind of the hot spot right now, and we have a lot of kids that are coming into the program, and it's causing hot spots within our elementary and high school. And that's another factor that we have to play into this as well.
So I guess what I'm looking for is what we should do now. So it sounds to me like no one is feeling that we should take the report as it stands and put it out for public consultation, that there needs to be further discussions as a board to sort of figure out, okay, well, let me put this another way. Is there anyone that feels that we should not consult the public with respect to this report? You're all okay with going to consultation as long as we can come up with a way of doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, I think everybody's in agreement. Okay, so to proceed with consultation is something we would do. It's just what exactly we would consult on, I guess, is the question. So how would you like to go about that? Janice?
Okay. What I've heard from the public is that the report needs to be shrunk down to where it's more understandable for some people. While it's a great report, many people have commented on it, that it's a rather lengthy report, so we need to give it a synopsis, and maybe the committee can do like a management synopsis on something like that, where it's more, how would I say, condensed and bullet. That was the concern I heard from parents. I still have a lot of questions, the financial implications, whether there's a sense of going through this, the emotional turmoil this district went through, and whether that's something that we want to do again. I don't know if I want to go there. To me, I have a lot of questions to have answered before I can just send it off to the public for the consultation. So I think as a group we'll have to have some more meetings and getting it out. But a report as it is, I don't think should go out. I think it needs to be vetted, that we, the board, maybe pare it down with minimal options. There's too many variables out there.
Lori?
I partially agree with Janice. The emotional upheaval, I don't agree with. If that's the reason, if this is something that needs to be done, and the reason why we stand against it is for emotions only, we're doing a disservice to our students if this is something that needs to be done. I said initially that we have to take the emotions out of this. It's unfortunate. We all get attached to things. We have to ensure that we have the right programs in place for our kids. I would like to see us sit down with senior management and figure out what our cost implications for whatever viable options that we choose when we're pairing them down, and have more to give to the public to say, option A is going to be this. Well, the first thing I want to know is how much. You know, if this is going to cost us $20 million, forget it. It's, cost viability is out the window as well. So there has to be a balance there if there is to be something done.
Okay. Did you have your hand up or no?
Yes, but I can wait.
Danny, do you have anything to say there?
No, not at this point.
Okay. Tom?
So I'm content with the September 8th as a kickoff to the next stage of the process. I stick with my earlier comments. I think that by September the 8th, the board in some way, at least I commit to being a lot clearer about where my leanings are based on the information that's available to us, including the most recent report, which I find, and people that I've spoken to who have read it, and arguably not tons of them, but those find it immensely readable, and I think that they did a nice job in distilling very complicated information into very understandable form. I'm a little leery about further editing something because things have had a tendency to get lost in translation, and I don't want that to be the mucky-muck that trips us up sometime down the road. I'm certainly supportive of getting the public's input post-September the 8th, but it's really, the challenge will be, and what will be critical, and you touched on it a little bit, is what's the ask? What is the question? Because if it's a just what do you think question, well, again, some people will think this, some people will think that, and others will think the third thing, and we're no further ahead than we were necessarily when we asked the first one. So I'm content with the September the 8th. I'd like for us to be a little more definitive as to where we stand as a board so that the public has some indication, and then define on that date specifically what the ask is in the time frame.
Either of you two have anything to say at this point? Jeff?
So one of the concerns and questions I will have is the cost implications. What did it cost for us to go through this reconfiguration, and what will it cost for that? So I'm wondering, in time frame, we'll be able to have that information presented to us. And I know it's over the summer holidays, and I apologize for asking that, but to make an important decision, we have to know the cost implications. I can't even speak tonight, sorry.
I would add a further thing to that, though, that I think it would be an unreasonable expectation for us to ask you to make detailed cost implications for every possible option that's contained in the report. I don't think that's reasonable. I think that we do need to take some, not edit the report, but maybe the board issues a position paper or something on the report that and defines what is the ask. Here are what we want to hear from the public on based on this report, and from that, perhaps get some information about budgets.
I agree with that, but that needs to be part of I think we need to know the cost, whatever we do.
Dr. Tinney.
So just as a couple comments as hearing the feedback from the board, if we're going to do further work with the report, I really appreciate the comments, because what you have is a committee-generated document, and any editing of that document in absence of the committee loses the work and the integrity that was done there. So it's just something for the board to think about in terms of how you refine it from here. And I think there are some simple things which were clearly not workable to take on. But beyond that, it starts to get pretty tricky. For example, if we're going to give detailed cost estimates separate from the ones that were given in the original paper, then we need to know things like, in a 2 secondary school model, which secondary schools. And to hear the board be declarative on that, because then we can go as deep as we possibly can. So the more information we can get from the board in terms of the details of where you want to go in the models, the clearer we can be in terms of presenting subsequent information. And then the next piece just to consider is, when you arrive at September 8th, what are you asking the public to consult on? Because then you potentially will have two reports. One, models, and people will always want to see as much detail as possible to get feedback, and then you'll have the pros and cons piece in a more generic, and just how you meld those two pieces together for consultation will be important.
Fran?
I like your idea of choosing one of the pre-high school models, one of the two high school models, based on what the report describes as the most viable. And if there's any question, then if we could get advice from the chair to ensure that our interpretation is the most viable from the report is the same as at least the chair's interpretation. And then I wouldn't change what was in the report, or in the one we chose. I would think that would be, okay, option one, here's this cut and paste from this report, financial implications attached to that. Option two, option three. So we would keep the same words, keep the same options, and then just add more information to that narrow, fairly narrow option in terms of which high schools, which whatever. Because otherwise it's so much work for what might not be viable, just for the sake of doing it.
So just, I see your hand there, but I'm just wondering if I could poll the board what you think about that. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in doing?
Yes.
I'm just hesitating because of my earlier comment and same as Jordan's comment around once you start to tangle with it. And while I respect that the committee had a chair, the chair was but the chair, and not suggesting at all that Clyde would misrepresent anything, but it begins to dilute a process that we invited the people to participate in, and they gave up themselves for 32 hours to do that.
So I think that the public consultation will actually do that. If we have an accurate representation of this is the Model A that the committee designed, we put that to the public, and then the public will do that. They'll say, this is what I like about the model, this is what I don't like about the model, and they'll do altering for us through their feedback, I think, to help us come to an eventual decision on that. Okay, so,
We need a motion to
we need a process here. I think what it sounds like is we need to, I don't think that we can sit here this evening and have a fuller discussion on this. I don't know if anyone's ready to do that this evening or not. No. Okay, so we need to probably have another subsequent meeting, at which time we will have a fuller discussion, I think, with respect to what we are going to ask the public to weigh in on in the fall. Do you agree with that?
I agree with the September 8th meeting to identify that.
So you're saying that you think we should meet, the next time we should meet is on September the 8th to have that discussion? Okay, what do other people think?
September 8th, too late for me. If you're going to have to do some preparatory work on finding out what the finances are, it can't wait that late in time.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, so sooner than that, maybe even within the next week or two. You really weren't going anywhere this summer, were you? No.
So,
Yeah.
let's just talk about this a little bit further, because, again, this has the potential to not only paralyze us even more. The sort of for discussion recommended motion there is that we announce the details of the formal consultation on September the 8th. And I think that that's a reasonable thing to do. And as part of that, we also as I've suggested, I think the board needs to take a more demonstrative position on where it is vis-a-vis the information. I'm unclear as to the need for a whole series of meetings and in between now and then.
Might
I'm
not,
unclear of that.
sorry, it might not be a whole series of meetings. A couple people have identified the need to also attach more details with respect to cost to this. So if we plan to put this out on September the 8th and make a decision with respect to it on October the 27th, and as you recall, we talked about October 27th because of timelines that need to be protected in the event a change would be made in September of 2010. We sort of need to be ready to go on September the 8th with what we would like to consult the public with. We couldn't then take a further few weeks to have further information developed. So I don't know, for me to be really frank with you, with respect to these three options and the variations on the options, for me it's not really going to be a difficult thing to say which ones I couldn't live with and to peel them off. I don't know what other people feel about that, but I would imagine we would have a whole bunch of meetings, like maybe one.
I think one of the things that the committee stayed away from was being declarative on the tough calls. It was really a very constant piece of our information was that, there are some really hard calls that the board needs to make, and so the committee will weigh in on the pros and cons. And I just drew a quick list here in terms of if we're going to have a few meetings, or even one, to talk about developing models from here are some pieces that we would need to know. And I think they're hard conversations for the board, and I think they take quite a bit of time. For example, do you convert Isfeld to a middle school, or do you convert Highland? We need an answer to develop appropriate funding. Do you convert Quinish back to a middle school and move the students back to Glacier View or not? Do you move French immersion from its current location? Do you keep Cumberland Junior open, or do you close it? Do you keep Lake Trail open, altered, or closed? And it's just those are the questions that are come to mind immediately for me on the committee, where we said these are issues, and the committee just said these are difficult challenges for the community, and they left them there. And so it's just whatever process you decide, we're going to have direction in terms of how far you want us to go down that road, and then that's the point where I think you really should think carefully about which process decides those models or those details from there, because then those will be the things that most likely the public will zero in on when they give you their feedback. They're more likely to be very explicit and detailed around Marcusville changing to a middle school than they are the pros and cons of a two secondary school middle school option. So the more detailed you can be for the public, the better in terms of their feedback. And so as a result, the more declarative you can be for us as we go down that road with you, the better it is for us. And so I think I don't think it's a couple short meetings. I think it's a fairly detailed conversation that you probably want to have in public.
So I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I'm not in a position to say whether I think Quinish should be converted back into a middle school or not. I think that we need to have that information developed. We have a model in the report that has 6 to 8 middle schools being implemented, and one of the parts to that would be that it doesn't seem to work especially well unless we convert Quinish back into a middle school. I don't know, I'm not especially fond of that option, but what I would like to know is, does the public, because a fair number of people thought we should have 6 to 8 middle schools, I would like to know, given what we know now and the cost that's involved and the disruption that it would cause, do you, as the public, feel that the people you've elected, do you feel that we should make that change or not? I don't want to sit here at the table and say, this is what I can live with and what I can't live with. I'm not in a position to be able to say that until I hear what the public has to say. That's who I take my instruction from. So that's...
And if I can clarify, I wouldn't be asking I'm not asking for the board's opinion on what outcome you would be at the end of the day. And as you ask us, or someone, to go and develop these models, yes, this is one that we want you to consider, because if you go from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2, certain things are going to be on the table and certain things are not. So absolutely not asking for a board's position on what you do at the end of the day, but as much guidance as you can in terms of helping the model developers is really welcome.
It's been developed, though, by the committee, is I guess what I'm saying, and maybe what we're saying the same thing, only differently. Maybe you're feeling there should be more meat added to the bones to have a more developed model. And maybe I'm on the opposite end, thinking that what we have there is what we should put out to the public for feedback. I don't know. Maybe we're on the same continuum. So, can we arrange to meet again? Okay, next question is, what kind of a meeting do we have? Do we want a special board meeting, or would you like to have an ad hoc committee of the board, committee of the whole struck to discuss this?
I'll go with the ad hoc committee.
Okay? Yeah, you guys are shaking your heads. Dennis?
Ad hoc committee is fine, but I'm just wondering when it is. On the holidays the next 2 weeks, so I might be on phone conference with Danny, so we're looking at date and time, so that would be an issue with me. I think it's a very important meeting, but I unfortunately do have plans.
I would not like to call it when you were not here. I would like it to be when all of us are here.
So, in keeping with the public consultation and transparency, whatever meeting allows for it to happen in the public is what I would support.
We can have a fishbowl ad hoc committee meeting, I suppose. That would be on. What do you guys feel? Fran?
I like that fishbowl idea. So an ad hoc committee, but any member of the public who wanted to be there could observe and listen.
Okay, I'm good with that. Okay? Okay, so do we need to make a motion? Do you guys want to make a motion with respect to any of this, or are we going to leave this for... We would have to call another special board meeting sometime between now and September the 8th to pass any motions. And I know some of you are in the way. Pardon me?
So we can leave that to the chair.
Okay, so anyone want to make any motion right now with respect to this, or would you like to just move on? Yeah, I heard 2 move-ons.
We need a motion for clarity. You guys...
How about strike an ad hoc committee to further discuss it? Len has a suggestion.
Just the ad hoc committee part, just call a special meeting, make it be a lot cleaner.
Len says call a special meeting, that would just be a lot cleaner and easier. Okay, so what are your thoughts on that? Len is...
Call special
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, Danny, we're going to go with the special meeting to be called in sometime in the near future. Okay, so we'll move on then. Perfect.
Chair Barr.
Yes.
Can I just say one
Yes,
more?
Superintendent Tinney.
Sorry. You know what, say, Susan. Just in response to Trustee Goldberg's comment, when we talked about asking the chair for what it was viable or not, just I think that the chair of the committee has done great work, and I think asking the chair, if you do, from here to the meeting, just is sort of beyond the call that the board had put. And so I think it puts them in a very, very difficult situation. So I'm hoping the meeting will happen spontaneously, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm sure you're on the same page.
Yeah. My understanding is that he's taking the summer off, so he's a smart man. Okay. So next item under old business is reduction in budget for administration. So the ministry had directed us to have a 4% cut to our administration budget. And now, if I understand this correctly, Len, what you're saying is the list that's at the bottom of page 6. Oh, the list that's at the bottom of page 6 is those are cuts that we are contemplating making, and if we make those cuts, then we would meet the 4% objective, which is around 180,000. Yeah.
Madam Chair, absolutely correct.
Okay.
But as the one previous discussion, maybe not the exact number that's on here. And the other piece is just in that whole spreadsheet and all the rest, and I won't go into huge detail, but there already was 278,000 worth of cuts previously, and that was made up by a little bit of the 0.6 PVP, some school admin time because of declining enrollment, a few other little things. Just so you know, it would be like 300 plus the 278, so we're in good shape. No worries about actually meeting the administrative cut amount. That's what
Okay, so we would be in compliance with the ministry direction, and we won't have to bake you a cake with a file in it to get you out of jail or anything. Okay. Okay. Good, so anyone have any questions on that? Okay, we'll proceed to CO2 levels in our schools. Briefing note from Len.
Okay, so I was on page 10, actually, yeah. CO2 testing. So past discussion had sort of moved us to that, considering air quality in all the schools. We did begin some testing of the other sites around the district, but the samples we have is really quite small, and it really wasn't sort of anticipating that we'd do any sort of publishing of our findings until the sample size was large enough to actually make some meaningful conclusions. And just to note that this is a lot of work. If you can see from the email that Director Morris gave me, it's probably 70 days worth of work. I've got the full, 7 or 8 hour days. So that's like a quarter of the time of one of the HVAC techs. So trying to sort of be able to still service the schools and other needs that we have, that we suggest you take that out over the whole year. So we'd probably come back in September with a report about CO2 levels.
Okay, so the briefing note, Danny, is that the CO2 testing in the schools be done over the course of the next year, and that there would be a report back to the board by September 2010. Fran?
That's okay.
Okay, okay. Fran?
I think that I'm concerned about the idea of spending 70 person days of work measuring carbon dioxide at every school in our district, because Brooklyn has a known documented carbon dioxide problem. So I think it makes sense to deal with the Brooklyn problem, and then if we want to test all schools, that's one thing, but then the next step would be to move to test schools where there's a question of whether or not there's a problem. And given Brooklyn's problem is known and documented, and that the plan was to install the HVAC a few years ago, this would delay it a few more years, because we've already been waiting for something to happen. And in terms of the hearkening back to the item a few moments ago on grade structure, there's no vision about the Brooklyn facilities disappearing. There was one reference to, well, maybe it could be used as a school board office. So there's no vision of that school not existing for some purpose. So in that sense, and given that the HVAC was planned for 2007, 2008, and 2008, 2009, and now isn't being planned for next year and wouldn't be planned the year after because we'd be waiting till everything was tested, I would think we should just install an HVAC in Brooklyn and get the money out of capital reserve and the facilities grant, or wherever management thought most appropriate.
Okay, anyone else have any comments with respect to this report? Janice?
I actually like the recommendation. I know that for the fact that Vanier, there's some issues regarding air quality, and there are some classrooms that are in school that don't have exterior windows and doors, and having children attending Vanier this time of year can be quite stuffy, and I think that I would like to know what is all our schools so we can be prepared to support our students. So I actually like the recommendation, and I think it's really good planning to support our schools by knowing what's happening in all our schools.
Huh?
For a question for Chuck, is this something that needs to be spread out over schools and done incrementally over time, or can you spend the first 10 days, for example, at Brooklyn and just do Brooklyn, and spend the next 10 days at Vanier and do Vanier? Or does that muck up the scores?
Take 24 hours to collect the data. We have one piece of testing. So that's one classroom for 24 hours. You can stay at one site and do every group in one site. goal. It's the goal to do the entire district in that fashion. If it is, it's far and far in excess of 70 working days.
So let me ask it differently then. Can the test be done sequentially from school to school? Or, because Brooklyn has been sort of on the agenda for some time around this issue, can we do Brooklyn and satisfy the numbers from a statistical standpoint, statistically relevant standpoint from Brooklyn, and move on? Or no?
What?
I'm just looking for some clarity here. Would you like to see Brooklyn be retested in more than one classroom right now to decide if there really is a problem there or not? Is that what you're asking? Exactly. I'm a little unclear, sorry.
Well, what I'm gathering from
Fran?
Fran's perspective is that the outstanding issue still is, and it's very much alive at the board table around the Brooklyn HVAC. So I'd like to bring some closure to that. I'd like to bring some closure to that. Yes, no, or yes or no.
Through you, Madam Chair. And again, I didn't really want to get into the tests that we've done, but one of them was at Brooklyn, and it didn't go above that 850 number during that day, right? So just I think in terms of if we're going to make decisions around Brooklyn, we probably should go back and retest it, all the rooms, if we're going to make that kind of decision. That would be just my recommendation.
So maybe I'll go first because you've spoken already. For me, I guess I have a bit of a concern with respect to testing every school in the district too. Like, I don't know, I'm no expert in this, but I would guess that, for example, Aspen must not have a CO2 issue, or Glacier View, I think they got a whole bunch of work done there at some point. So the schools that obviously probably, shouldn't have any problems, I don't see why we would waste our time checking them. But Brooklyn, for example, I would wonder, while opening the window for part of the year is a good solution, that I don't know that they're going to be opening their windows in December, January, February. So I would wonder throughout the year what the readings would be in schools that we have a concern about. And so I think for me, I am concerned about air quality, and I would like to spend our money in a smart way. And so if we needed to fix some schools up that were a known issue, that might be something I would consider spending my money on, but I would need more information first. Well, that's my 2 cents worth. Fran?
And just to clarify, Tom, it was January 2008 that the initial testing was done with windows closed, I assume. And then I don't know that the exact conditions were replicated in the more recent tests. But it wasn't just one room. There were several rooms. And I don't know if this is true, but have been informed by someone who used to work in the district that the problems that were alleviated at Glacier View are the same problems that are at Brooklyn in terms of the system. I don't know who would know better than I, but to me it doesn't seem as if it's an issue or a question about whether or not there's a difficulty. It's a question of whether or not we want to commit to dealing with that now, because this one is known in terms of Vanier. Fortunately, it's first on the list in terms of the earthquake preparedness, in terms of seismic, etc. So that's there too, and there just are so many priorities in the district. But if we have a known issue, and it's been several years, I just don't know why we have to wait to find out where we may have other issues.
So if I've heard this correctly, then you have some data already with respect to January testing for Brooklyn, right? And then you are coming up with some testing for sort of summer, springtime testing with windows open. I wonder if that couldn't be somehow compiled to let us know for the year what the situation is at Brooklyn, maybe sooner than September 2010, maybe even this fall. Does that make sense or not?
Through Madam Chair, that's what I was suggesting. I think if you're wanting to, make a decision sooner about this, is maybe we pick that one in Vanier and maybe a couple others and curtail it to a smaller group, and then, you can engage from there. Sure.
Okay, what do y'all think about that? Smaller group and sooner?
Mhm. Potentially.
Okay, so what would you recommend?
Through Madam Chair, have the report ready.
Yeah.
We could begin sampling when school comes back in September, and probably 2, 3, or 4 schools of similar systems in them as Brooklyn, and have the results together.
What does the board think of that? Well, I just have one little thing to say. As much as I love Brooklyn, my kids went there for 11 years. I don't know that that's got the worst system in the district. So if you felt there was another school in the district that had a worse system where the air quality was worse than Brooklyn, I would certainly be interested to hear your thoughts and get your data on that. Yeah?
I think so.
Okay, so do you need board direction? It sounds like then doing a report on what makes sense and reporting back by November is, we're okay with that? Do you want a motion or? Okay. Okay, next item on the list is the school capacity report. Anyone have any comments or questions with regards to this? I just have a little question. There was a briefing note that was omitted from the board pack. Does that get uploaded to the agenda pack somehow?
And can I just explain that so the public knows as well? That report was to have my omission, 2 pieces. One was actually a briefing note attached to the spreadsheet, because the spreadsheet was the one that was shared before. And the briefing note is a description of the feedback we've received from schools, because the board's direction really was to have schools engage with their communities, with the parents, with the staff about the needs. So that's part of that was the one we sent out to the board earlier, and as Jeff says, it'll be part of the pack that's on the public website.
Okay, good, thanks.
Can
Go ahead,
Can we just ask Director Douglas, is just part of the capacity spreadsheet might be just to update the board on enrollment at Valley View?
Thank you.
Madam Chair. At Valley View, since we've done our capacity sheet, we've had a large influx of children, affectionate children, not cross-boundary children, into the school area, which has forced us to take another good look at the staffing at that school. We had earlier this week 24 new students arrive into that area, usually new to the district or people who have shifted around in the district and actually bought in the catchment area. So that has given us cause to look again at staffing at another division to that school. And we're in the process of doing that. Families want to know where their children are going to school in September, and they don't want to wait till then, so we are working on that now, notifying the families to say they're off the wait list, they're actually there, and we'll give them those calls now. There's actually some very happy people that are moving from other parts of the province that are saying, thank you, we now know where we're going, we appreciate that, and are happy to be coming here, and they're going to be in good school.
Yes?
So the question I have is portables. Adding a new classroom, how many portables will now be used at Valley View?
So we need to use, if you remember, we have 2 different surplus. We will have to use one of those portables to house this new division. And when the parents were sort of notified that there will be portables on site, they'd rather be in a portable than have to go to a school down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm just glad to say that we're doing the right thing. I think it's in that these people that have moved into an area where their school is, and we're going to say to them, you can't go there. I don't agree with, so I'm glad that we're doing the right thing.
And for me, the situation at Valley View really highlights why we have to have further conversations with regard to the report from the grade structure committee, because this is going to be an ongoing thing in the future, and we want to make sure that a community like Valley View is adequately supported with the space that they've got. So, yeah, thanks a lot for your work on that. Anyone else? Green?
Just the one thing, I see that in the briefing note, Cumberland acknowledges that 2 portables would allow them to continue to use those 2 empty classrooms. And I know there's been some question about one of the portables being up and running for September. I just want to ensure that they will have those 2 portables at this juncture.
You're not sure, the 2 portables in question will be ready for September.
Perfect.
Thanks, Alan, and everyone else who contributed to this report. I think it was a good exercise so that we adequately understand what's going on in the schools, and this will assist us going forward in the future. Okay, so next item, Chair's report. So I do actually have a few things to say tonight. Hopefully I'll keep it to under 7 minutes. So to state the obvious, this has been an eventful year. It's hard for me to believe that I could sit here today and actually feel so optimistic about the future of our district when just a year ago I felt like there was nothing but pessimism, anger, and turmoil. Last year, parents, students, and school district employees told me that they did not feel heard by the board. They said they did not understand why changes were being made or what the future held for them. 1 year ago, we were at a place where ordinary people felt so compelled to seek fairness that they went to court so that they could ask a judge to review decisions the board had made. When our schools finally opened at the beginning of the school year, there were moldy portables to deal with, timetables and class lists to rewrite, and brand new school cultures to develop. And if that wasn't hard enough, the new BC ESIS computer system was added to our staff's already overflowing plates. It was a really rough start to the year. And then at the November 15th school board election, the people of the Comox Valley decided that they wanted a change in school leadership, and so they elected the sort of 7 of us sitting here today. In the 7 months since the election, our board has been doing our level best to work in a way that earns the public's confidence and respect by ensuring we do 3 basic things. One is that we are asking you for your input because we really want to hear what you think. 2, we are seriously considering what you tell us because we want to make informed decisions. And 3, when we make a decision, you will know why we're making the decision and how we came to the conclusions we did. It'd be nice if you agreed with us always, but I don't think that's possible. So we get a lot of feedback actually through letters and emails and online forums and so forth, but in addition to that, trustees are talking and listening to people and being part of our communities in quite a variety of ways. When I look back at my own calendar, I realize why I'm so tired and looking forward to summer holidays with such a big grin on my face. This year, I attended 29 parent advisory committee meetings at 10 different schools, 6 meetings with the district parent advisory committee or their executive, and attended some of the parent education sessions that Jordan put on. I went to the initial liaison meeting with our principals and vice principals, attended 4 meetings with the Comox Valley Teachers Association as their liaison trustee, and 1 meeting with support staff as their alternate liaison trustee. As the liaison trustee for Aboriginal Education Council, it was my honor to be invited to attend their council meetings this year, their community dinner, the Nowatsi school planning meeting, and recognition ceremony this year, and I did attend all those things. I also attended the annual school planning meeting at Vanier, made visits with my colleagues to our high school's lunchrooms to listen to the concerns of staff, got volunteered to help drop Jordan repeatedly into a dunk tank, which was quite fun, and also got volunteered to play along with the amazing Vanier improv team at their fundraiser. I learned about what matters to our French immersion community by attending 3 of their French advisory committee meetings this year, and most recently I attended the newly forming Committee on Fine Arts. I participated in 37 board committee meetings with my colleagues, as well as at least 7 budget meetings, 20 public board meetings, and 19 in-camera meetings. By the end of this week, I will have attended 4 graduation ceremonies, 11 fine arts performances, the Heritage Fair, and sadly, 3 funerals. I spoke on behalf of the board at the Cumberland and Council Chambers, the Rotary, represented the board on the Comox Valley Critical Incidents Response signing event, and will do so again on your behalf at the Welcoming and Inclusive Committee's public signing event next week. In total, I have attended 183 meetings and events this past school year, and I know that my fellow board members have made similar efforts to connect with their community. We talk to a variety of people and see things in a variety of ways, and therefore bring a variety of perspectives to the board table. I am personally glad we are able to communicate with respect for each other and for those we serve, and so I am greatly optimistic about what the future holds for School District 71. We are working hard on your behalf to support a public education system that kids, their parents, our staff, and communities can all be proud of. Thanks to you and the public for trusting us with your comments and thoughts. Please do not stop. We want to hear what you have to say, even when you disagree with us. So to finish off, I don't think anyone can argue that we haven't had a rough start to this year. But luckily, we have the very, very best staff in the province, right here in the Comox Valley. You have given your all to make sure our kids got the best experience they possibly could this year. You are really our heroes, and on behalf of the Comox Valley, I thank all of our staff for your amazing work this year. We hope you take the summer off, mostly. Get some rest because you truly deserve it. And we look forward to seeing you and the public again in the fall. And my crystal ball says really good stuff is ahead. So thanks. So there's my 2 cents worth, or $4 worth. Thank you. Under 7 minutes? Oh, good.
To be exact.
What was that, Danny?
I said 5.5 to be exact.
5.5, I know. You're prone to timing things, so thank you. Next, we'll move to management reports. Jordan, did you want to speak to the school fees issue?
Maybe just to say that a few years ago, what we did was we moved to be consistent at across our schools. That's why the $25 fee for secondary school, and a reminder that the board has committed $100,000 in ongoing money to our secondary schools to support the fees issue from the outset, and that money is greatly needed and very well used by our schools, and that's why our fee structure is so small and so low.
So I'll move that the board approves the school fees as presented.
Second,
Discussion? Jen?
I have a question. Our favorite trustee, Victoria, is at it again, and I'm just wondering, we're pretty well set, and our students are well going to go through the next year, because my concern is if he is successful, that unfortunately, for those who don't know, John Young is the school trustee in Victoria that believes that K-12 should be absolutely free, and he's launched another court challenge on school fees. So I'm just cautious and curious that we're meeting the criteria and that our students will move forward, and there's places and there's supports in place for those students that need help.
Luckily for you, we have someone here in the district that was like way ahead of the pack on this one the last time, and that would be Jordan. So he probably has something to say on this.
Well, just that when John Young was successful last time, we took our policy, rewrote it completely with a good group of people, and I feel we're in good shape, because what you don't see is a list of here are the courses and here are the charges for everything from $15 for foods to $98 for mechanics or stuff like that. So I feel we're in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Thanks. Okay, anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of approving the fees report? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. The achievement contract. Jordan.
Motion that board approve the achievement contract in principle. Second for discussion.
Okay, Jordan, would you like to tell us about this?
Just briefly, you see and I appreciate that the board is open to a different format for this year. You see a very brief briefing note, 1 page, trying to have a synopsis. And last night I got a chance actually with the District Parents Advisory Council to walk through what is a different look for an achievement contract. And I won't go in detail other than to say what we're really trying to do is have this document be something that is useful for the public, where they can view it in a general sense and get an idea of the direction of the district. And then if they wish to go deeper, they may. They simply need to go down the levels through the achievement contract. I put in, I told the board as well that this is a synopsis view, and that you have a more detailed one actually in your box today. And the one that goes online for the July 15th deadline will, I hope, be really well received by the public as far as a readable document, so it makes sense and is helpful for our direction.
Yes?
Okay, I have a couple of questions, so I'll ask them and you can answer them. There's two things that I noticed. One is our exam rates this year were not what I thought they would be. And I'm wondering two things. One is, what supports do you have in place at secondary level to support those students on literacy and numeracy? And has the new requirement of grade 12 exams being optional has an effect? And the other concern that I have is regarding those students who are not academically gifted or inclined, for those that automotive, fine arts, and that. And I read your the contract. Can you explain to me how we're supporting those students who may not want to go off of that, like whether they're going to automotive and that? So those are the questions, and just some clarification on that. That was my concerns.
Maybe I'll answer the impact of provincial exams piece and then pass to Assistant Superintendent Elwood for the support structure piece. And one of the impacts of provincial exams being optional is, of course, any student can choose to write or not write, and it's having an enormous impact on provincial exams in terms of, at one time, whether you like standardized tests or you don't, the fact was we had measures that were district-wide, and every student took them, and now we really can't say that. So one of the trends I've noticed right away, for example, is for those students who really do need support and have perhaps struggled in the course, and they have maybe 52% or 51% in the course. In the past, they would write provincial exams. They'd have to get prepped, and it was a big task for them. Now, if it's optional, what is the incentive for a student who's on that borderline to write the exam? Assuming that most students would say, if I'm at 51%, I've done my time, I know where I stand, why take the risk? And so we aren't seeing exams written by large numbers of students. And conversely, for students who are at 83% or they're close to an A, there is incentive to write the exam to improve their marks. So we're seeing what was once a bar, like it or not, that we could look at district-wide simply gone. And then one of the important parts of the achievement contract is both with, we don't like to use FSA anyway, but with FSA and provincial exams, those common measures really are not very useful to us any longer in terms of looking at the district overall, and we need to just simply move right away from them. Sherry, do you want to comment on the support piece?
Yeah, should I just ask the questions around what are we doing around literacy and numeracy first at secondary? We're continuing building networks in literacy and numeracy before the trustees last year during the budget process. Part of what we needed in the secondary system was to develop those kinds of networks that would give teachers both time and resources to look at their own teaching capacities and develop strategies that they might want to pursue. We began that work last year, hope to continue that work this year. We have, I think most people are aware that Lake Snow that comes into our district, he has a long history with our district. That's one of the examples that we have where teams of teachers can come together to work together on their instructional strategies and can share their expertise and learn from themselves, because that's always the best way to do that. So we have, as much as we've been able to within the budget process for this coming year, put into place within my budget, within Lord Douglas's budget, but it always comes out of my budget. We've developed some plans around continued in-service for secondary teachers. One of the other pieces that's really important is that probably nothing has shifted so quickly in public education and curriculum than secondary curriculum. Secondary curriculum over the last 8 years has experienced major shifts, probably positively so, but the corresponding resources very rarely came attached, or certainly were available, and certainly weren't paid for by the ministry. So we've been working really hard in a 3-year plan around the development of the learning resources, meaning we've been trying our best to take money from one year to another, to pool it together, to provide our teachers with the most up-to-date texts that they can find. So right now we've just hopefully finished the purchasing of the implementation of some new math texts, for example, which we're hoping with the curricular packages that come with them, the teacher resources, will allow our teachers to have some resources at their fingertips that they didn't normally have and that weren't available. So we do it in a variety of different ways. We also, through the work of our Director of Student Support Services, have resources that are now school-based to help those students who are struggling. And we've really gone to a much more school-based model.
So we have a ways to go, to be truthful, in secondary, and it would be unfair for me not to say that. We have put a number of resources in the past years in this district at the elementary level, and we've created some amazing experiences for our kids at the elementary level. Our goal and our need now is to make sure that as we supported those elementary students and gave them skills and some capacities to know about how they learn, that when they make the shift to secondary, that those kinds of supports are in place for them still, or that they find a path for themselves now that they know the kind of learner they are. That will be our challenge, and that certainly is the work that we'll need to do over the next couple of years. Part of that challenge is to provide our secondary students with the realization that there are a variety of different pathways to graduation for them. And as they become young adults, they begin to understand where their skills and passions lie. Put a number of resources in the last year, and continue to for the coming year, in the area of trades and technology. So you're aware, and I think Randy Gray's been in front of you, and Stu has been in front of you in terms of the kinds of things that are going on at that level. We're really focused at committing whatever resources we can find to offer our students trades opportunities in a way that will ladder them into work and employment in the future, or find a pathway for them. So we have 3 brand new programs for next September. That's the Auto Service Level 1 Technician Program, we have the Carpentry Program, and we have the Access to the Beauty Program, the hairdressing program, for anyone who might want to access that. And so that's under the ACIT umbrella. That's new for our district. It's exciting. It's a step forward for us in a major way. So that's some of the pathways that we're offering. We've also done some major reshuffling in our alternate system, and that is in our vision is to blur some of the lines around how students access some alternate kinds of way of learning. So we're working on that at the Glacier View Learning Site. We're working at it with NINES and DL, understanding that we need to offer a smorgasbord, that's my metaphor, a smorgasbord of opportunities for our kids to get to graduation. And every time we add another entree on that smorgasbord, we're going to capture some kids that we might have lost before. So if that answers where we're going and where we're moving, that's why you see me in front of you often with budget proposals, and that's clearly the direction for secondary.
That helps me. Thank you.
Can I just make one more brief comment? Sorry, I couldn't help but get in on the provincial exam. Question my annual editorial on the Fraser Institute, in that in a system which, of course, is recently reported and designed to rank schools based upon their performance on provincial exams, when you're an independent school, of course, you can say one of the requirements for entry is that you sign up for provincially examinable courses and you write those provincial exams. And of course, we don't do that in public schools. So what was a very flawed system in the first place is now even more flawed. And so that's another effect of the provincial exams being optional.
Thank you. Grant?
A couple things. I also like the format. I think it is much more readable and user-friendly. I also really like the focus on engagement and interaction, and hope that we're able to translate that in theory to that in practice, because it's not like there's been so much of a focus on talking about kids who aren't academically inclined. We also need to keep our academically inclined kids engaged and interested as well. The one piece I still have difficulty with is the completion rate. I see that now that movement to NINES is factored in, our completion rate isn't as bad as we thought it was, but I still take exception to how it's calculated from the ministry level on down, because it's based on a correction for an estimate of how many students aren't completing because they're moving. It's not based on the actual number of students who have moved out of the district. And I think until we use real numbers, the completion rate number isn't quite as meaningful. Well, it isn't meaningful to me at all until we know what we're really dealing with. So I think it's useful to keep in mind, but to determine how much weight you really want to attribute to that figure. And also there was a reference to the school completion principle, which I understand is now morphed into, or there is no specific school completion principle. Maybe you could explain what happened.
Two pieces on the first on the impact of NINES and the completion rate. Paul Berry's been working with John Taylor around basically getting right down to the student level of extracting the students who are enrolled in North Island Distance Education School. And so we're able to finally have an answer for that is really definitive around the actual, right down to the postal code of the kids who are enrolled. And yeah, it draws a much better picture, but still one where we have room for improvement, and you'll see that in the final report. In terms of the district principal school completion, when Liz McKenzie, the district principal student services, retired 2 years ago, we took a look at as our executive team, the roles and responsibilities, and with the focus on school completion, we decided to rename that position to district principal school completion. And that one of the downfalls of that is it was taken that there was a new position created at the board office, and this was an ad. So to both answer that and get back to the intent, because we felt we lost a little bit too, was renaming the position back to student services, and of course the successful candidate highly qualified to do that. The other part is we're readjusting some of the responsibilities for Jeff Taylor, our district principal, information technology, and so he can pick up some of that school completion work with our team, and that'll be in them. That's how we're going to manage that at the district level.
I have to agree with Fran. I like the way that it's worded, the way the setup is. I can't support it in principle, though, and it's on the graduation rate alone. There's a huge discrepancy between what our average is and what our schools are actually doing. I don't hold the Fraser Institute in high regard. I've never looked to see where the schools are placed, but looking at their graduation rates for last year, Highland was 93.6%, Vanley was 94.6%, Isfeld was 97.1%. So basically we have an average of 95.1% between the three high schools. And we're saying our average is 71. I think we're misleading the public with this. I just don't buy it. You know, it sounds like our kids are doing quite poorly. One thing that really did stick out with me, and I think as a public we need to be concerned about, was the average exam mark. It was 67.5%, and in Isfeld's student handbook that my daughter goes to, they have it written down there that this mark would be considered almost meeting grade level expectations. To me, I'm a little concerned. That sounds like mediocrity. Are we willing to accept this? I think we should be asking more of our kids. It's just on that principle alone, I can't support this achievement contract until we alter how we view our graduation rates.
Jordan has something to say?
Yeah. So there are three measures that are used for graduation or completion. Actually, two for graduation and one for completion. And we try, and if it's not clear in the agreement, it's definitely something I should tailor up because it should be clear to everyone who reads it. One of the measures that school is used by the Ministry of Education is called eligible grade 12s. And that means you have to be enrolled in grade 12 and you have to be enrolled in sufficient courses in order to graduate. So you have a reasonable shot at it. And that rate is traditionally very high. Those are probably the numbers for the district and have been for years. The issue with that one is that if I'm a school principal and I take a look at Jordan Kinney and I say, gee, Jordan's enrolled in English 12, but you know what, he struggled last year and he's got a heavy course load, I don't think he's going to make it. I can roll Jordan back to grade 11. I can change how he's allocated in the school system, and so you can play with the numbers depending on how you choose to report students to manipulate the eligible grade 12 data. So what you do is you basically make sure, you go through as a principal, and you make sure that every kid who's in grade 12 and is registered in the courses actually has a great chance of graduating. Otherwise, you roll them back. So your number stays above 90% typically, and you'll see that provincially. Then there's another rate, which is first-time grade 12s. And the first-time grade 12 graduation would be just as it implies. Anyone, regardless of the course, who moves into grade 12 is taken into account there. And so that will be lower because you won't necessarily be enrolled in sufficient courses. And so you see the correction. The one that we use and we stick with, because it's less likely to be manipulated, is what's called the 6-year Dogwood completion rate. It's not a graduation rate. And so what that measure does and is flawed, they're all flawed, but my view is it's the least flawed, is when it takes a snapshot of the students in a district when they enter grade 8, and then it measures 6 years later, and it says, do they have a Dogwood certificate? So it does a couple things. One, it gives students an extra year, because not all students graduate lockstep through 5 years, so it gives them 6 years. And the other one is it reduces the impact of things like alternate programs or distributed learning, where a student may move from time to time and take a variety of courses elsewhere. They could be moved to a different school or even to another district and then come back. And I feel it corrects all very well. So when you take a look at our 6-year rate, that's the rate that is the 73% with the knives in. So the reason that we don't use the first two is because it's so easy to manipulate, really.
Would this one not be easy to manipulate as well? We have a very transient Valley with the base being here, and little Susie Q, who has moved here in grade 8 with her family that's posted here, and has moved out in grade 10. We still track her as if she's a non-graduating student, correct?
So what, and I think as part of Trustee Goldberg's question, what the ministry does is it takes a look at the demographics of a district overall, and it takes the snapshot early, I think grade 4, and it looks at the trends and demographics in the valley, or in a district, and then it makes an estimation based on, or in the graduation years, and it corrects out. So last year, or the last time it came out, for example, I think ours was 106 students or something like that. So that's the flaw that is difficult, is we don't know that exact number. But it's still, in my humble opinion, less likely to be manipulated than the other two. For example, the eligible grade 12 rate and the first time grade 12 rate, what if they don't make it to grade 12? They're not even, that would be a good thing for that grad rate, because they don't get counted. It only looks at the students once they get there as well. So that's why the 6-year, it captures them all. Another downside of the 6-year is that when a student moves to Comox Valley, we own them. So they may go to grade 8 in Alberni Valley, and they may go there for grade 8, 9, 10, 11, and halfway through 12, and then they move to us. They become our completer. And it's the same for our students going elsewhere. So that's one where, again, we try and get right down to the individual student level to track our students individually to find out their stories, and that's how we get it back.
Just want to discuss the board here. It's 8:25 right now. We've got a few things remaining on our agenda. Just wondering if someone would like to make a motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock, so I can see if the board is interested in doing so. Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Second, okay, so we need to have unanimous consent to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock. So all those in favor? Danny, how do you vote? Okay, opposed? Okay, so that's defeated. So I've just put the board on notice that at 8:45, I'm going to cut the business of the board off so that we can have the public have an opportunity to ask questions. I know that they wished to ask us questions last week, and we did not afford them the opportunity to do so. So at 8:45, I'll take questions, okay? So we can continue on with the discussion with respect to the achievement contract. Oh, and by the way, if we require a further meeting, I'll call it right now for July the 2nd at 6 o'clock for any in-camera business that we don't get to tonight, and 7 o'clock for the public board meeting. And I'm sorry you won't be here, but maybe you can phone in.
I can tell. I wasn't going to bring this up, but Mr. Tinney did regarding the Fraser Institute and the marking. And I have a real issue with that, especially at the secondary school level. Having 3 boys going through high school, I'll make this really brief because I know we're in time here. Having 3 boys going to high school, 2 extremely academic and both winning provincial scholarships, they made the markings. That 3rd one did not. In fact, he didn't write the provincial exams. But what he and his friends walked out of there was that I looked at a test on how do you build a house. How do you complete rebuilding a motor? Until the Fraser Institute acknowledges all those skills, I have no faith in whatsoever in the secondary school level on how they mark our students, and about time that we, the public, start saying that. Because all those kids that complete that house last year are working in the construction industry now with really good paying jobs, and those kids that rebuilt that motor are either building, they're mechanics, they're working. So until such time as they acknowledge those kids, the Fraser Institute is not valid as far as I'm concerned. And that's my 2 cents on the Fraser Institute and high schools.
Any comments from trustees? Okay, well, to stick my oar in the water, I love the new format. I'm so happy not to have to read an 82-page report. You can't imagine. No, I really like that a lot. Thank you very much for taking the bold step of doing that. And for me, the major change that I would like to see us consider for the next year is to move away from the 6-year completion rate. I would like to know from year to year how many kids transition from, say, grade 10 to grade 11. For me, it's all about this, to develop responsible, compassionate citizens and successful lifelong learners. So, you know what? I'd like to know why kids are leaving school. And I think we need to deal with numbers that deal with real people. And so if we know that there are 200 kids in grade 10 and only 190 of them go on to grade 11, maybe then somehow we can get to asking those 2 kids or those 10 kids that left, why did they leave? So that's my 2 cents worth on that. Sherry.
If I could just add, I'm sure one of the things that the 6-year graduation rate does not address, and it wasn't mentioned, but I think it's worthy of acknowledgement, and it speaks to the mission statement too, is that some of our students, for all of the right reasons, finish with a school leaving certificate. That is not recognized anywhere. It's not recognized in the Fraser Institute because those students don't actually exist, really. It gets turned into the non-completion rate because they're registered. But there are, for some of our students, there are absolutely valid reasons for them to be on a school leaving pathway. It affords them the kinds of opportunities that they need to become successful, and it speaks to everything that we talk about in our mission statement. So one of the things that we miss in that is the celebration, and I would hope that we get to a place where we celebrate that as genuinely as we do those students who meet the Dogwood pathway. Not because one is better or different, they're just different, but they're valid for each one of those kids. We consciously often put them on those pathways for all the right reasons, but at the very end of it, we haven't got to a place where we perhaps celebrate it as equitably as we do those kids who finish on that.
I agree. Okay, so have a motion on the floor that the board approve the achievement contract in principle. All those in favor? Danny, how do you vote? Do you vote yes?
Yes.
Okay, opposed? And that is carried. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes?
May I just ask that we move to the annual budget bylaw in the time that we have left, and then go back to any items that are board information?
Have to ask the board what your pleasure is.
I concur that we need to do that.
Okay, so we'll move down to Secretary Treasurer, item number 1. I'm just wondering if we should say something about item B, budget priorities first, since that forms part of what we're going to be voting on.
Actually, it might be easier if we started with page 28, and I'll just go from there, and then if people want to go into details of it, just in terms of timing. So this one was, I was just trying to show the summary of what changes had happened from the previous year in just a couple of pages. So there's reductions that were from enrollment declines to 17 FTE for teachers, a little bit of PVP, DEA, school clerical. Those are kind of the next list. All reductions included from proposals, and I think this is what you're trying to get at, Madam Chair, is a change since I've created this document is the change in custodial maintenance relief overtime practices, which is second from the bottom, has been changed from $100,000 reduction to $50,000. So that subtotal at the end there will be $450,000 rather than $500,000. The addition on the other page of 50 still exists, so that would come back, and the net decrease is $400,000. So look to the board for a bit of direction. Would you like me to actually go through some of the details of the budget, or would you just like to jump to the amount and work from there?
What is your pleasure?
I think the amount will work for me.
So with that small change of $50,000, the amount to be read, so I probably need to write this down if you're the ones actually writing the, saying the motion. It's $74,022,046. So that's what the motion will have to read. And as I mentioned, I tried to mention before, I'm sorry I got put out of order, the unanimous agreement doesn't actually have to happen. The School Act doesn't require that for money bylaws. So you can just do the 3 readings if you like. Is there any questions?
So, you have a question?
Sorry.
No, I was going to start reading until somebody else wants to do it. Okay. That School District number 71, Comox Valley, annual budget bylaw for 2009-2010 in the amount of $74,022,046 received its first reading.
Seconder?
Second.
Any comments? Okay, well, I'd like to make some comments that this budget has been arrived at through a process. We have gone and consulted with various partner groups. I think from my personal perspective, it was not the best process we could have had. It's difficult to ask for budget increases proposals from the public when we're going to have a deficit, and so we have to consider maybe doing this a little differently next year, but that's later on in the agenda if we get to it this evening. But the cuts that we've made, I by no means personally agreed with all of them, but I do believe that the process that we engaged in as a board was a fair way for us to agree by majority as to what we could live with for cuts. I'm not happy to be sitting here making cuts. I know that many districts around the province are being forced to make cuts, some far more than us. Luckily, we have a bit of money in previous surpluses to help us out so that we can balance our budget and still have some cuts, I guess. But it's not a nice position to be in. I'd like to be able to carry everything over, but we can't. And so I guess what I'm saying is I guess this is about as fair as it could get for me this year. I don't like the cuts, though. Anyone else have a comment? Nope. Okay, all those in favor? Danny, yes?
Yep.
Opposed? And that's carried.
The School District number 71, Comox Valley, annual budget bylaw for 2009-2010 in the amount of $74,022,046 received its second reading.
Second.
Any comments? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Have a reader? For the third reading of the bylaw?
That the board unanimously agreed to suspend the
No,
requirements.
Janice, no, we don't need to do that. It's
so
okay.
the bottom line?
The bottom line.
Okay, that School District number 71, Comox Valley, annual budget bylaw for 2009-2010, the amount of $74,022,046 received its third and final reading.
Second.
Okay, any comments from anyone else? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Sadly, that's carried. Okay, thank you. So we'll go back up to school operating times, if that's okay?
I move that the board approve the changes to the bail times listed for North Island District Education School and in Cole Puntledge Park Elementary as presented.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Community literacy report, Marianne.
Just for board information, the Community Literacy Committee is having its final meeting on Thursday, June 25th, and that's the day that the community plan will be finalized. So I was seeking the board's approval on sending it to you as an attachment, so you can take a look at this as a final document, so it can be attached to the achievement agreement, as it has to go to the ministry with the achievement. You had a report on it at the last board meeting. The community committee, we just couldn't line up the dates for the community committee and this board meeting to work, so I apologize on behalf
That's okay.
of all of the community members.
There's, what, 40 people or something that meet? There's a lot of
There's about
people.
40.
Yeah.
So sorry, the ask is to, it's okay to send us an attachment to review?
Send you the final draft as an attachment, so you can see it before it gets attached to the achievement agreement.
Do we need a motion on that?
I think it's okay.
Fine.
Or another thing we could do is, since we may have to meet again on July the 2nd, because we only have 6 minutes before I go to the public, we could have that added. Would that work?
Absolutely.
Okay? What do you think of that? Okay, thank you. Okey-doke, good news piece.
piece of this part of the brief, because you probably already read this, but we've been approached by the University of Victoria through this ongoing work that we've been doing with them to be part of a pilot of a program that was developed by Dr. Jim Manaka from UVic that has been noticed in the United States as a program for students on the autism spectrum. And so if you, I'm not going to just read the whole thing to you, but it's really could be an incredible project over the next 5 years. They're expecting funding in the range of about $750,000, and so we would be proposing a budget to them to support the work of them coming up here to field test this product that would then be used in schools all across the country and all across North America. And we're the only district that they're approaching right now in Canada. And they may work with another district in Oregon. They still haven't decided on that. So it's a big honor, I think, for our district. And I think it will be, to field test it, will benefit our own kids, and will benefit kids all over the province. And if you'd like, on the 2nd, I can bring some samples and stuff.
Okay, that'd be kind of cool. Okay. Okay, any questions? Thanks. Okay, we'll move on zip down to Secretary Treasurer's Annual Facilities Grant Plan. And we talked about that already. So that has been attached for information. In the past, the board has sometimes approved it and sometimes not. So I thought maybe we could just go with the board information piece, and if people wanted to take ownership of this and vote on it, you could make a motion this evening. Maybe you have some questions or comments with respect to this report for Glenn?
Sorry, I just have one other piece of information, and I hate to bring it up because it's a recurring theme with the government about not actually saying that they're going to give us AFG for next year at this very late date.
They did it again.
A political issue that the board wants to take on, and writing a letter to them because at this point in time they have not confirmed that we will get any money. And as of course, at July 1 we tend to have a bunch of contracts ready to roll. In fact, I believe we have some signed already. So it's a bit of an issue for us. So I just wanted to bring that out first. Sorry.
Do they have any idea when they just might make a decision? Are they going to have to wait till September? Or?
I wish I could answer. I have no idea.
You have no idea? Love the government. Yeah, I think that we should write a letter to them and urge them to help us to protect the investment we have in buildings by looking after roof replacements and making sure that we can have security things installed, and that we can follow their direction to become a more green district by making sure our lighting is completed and so forth. I think that we do need to write them a letter and ask them to send us the check, please.
So I'll make a motion to write the Ministry of Education a letter expressing our concerns and asking for them to pay up. Not in those terms, but
I like it. Personally, I like
Could I make just a suggestion to that? I think a letter should be to the Premier, the CC to the Minister of Education.
and CC to all school boards.
Oh, good. Thanks, Danny. Good to know you're still out there. Okay. Any discussion on that?
No, unfortunately, the way things are going, we may not have any buildings left to be able to upgrade.
That's true.
You're lucky you're on the telephone.
Okay, any further discussion on that motion? Please,
Can we
Fran?
put a time on that?
No. No. I'm pretty sure they will have done that. I'm pretty sure.
Calling them regularly, would it make sense?
We do.
I think Glenn's got speed dial, right?
They don't answer my calls. Sorry to say.
Jordan?
Just, we may have some more information, hopefully, on Thursday for just board's info. I've been asked to join the provincial committee around capital planning, and it's a small group. So anyway, our first meeting is on Thursday, so at least I'm sure the question will be on the table, where is the AFG to begin with. So when we meet on the 2nd, we may have an answer.
If it's not on the agenda, could you put it on the agenda?
For the 2nd?
No, for your meeting, when you're
Oh,
meeting.
it'll be on there. Go.
So we'll have to have an agenda setting meeting. Actually, I'll get back to you with the details of that one. Okay, so we have a motion to write the letter. All those in favor? Opposed? Danny, how do you vote?
Yes.
She seconded.
Okay, thank you, and that is carried.
Do you need a motion to adjourn the meeting to
No.
the 2nd, or?
No, I think we're just going to,
Questions and inquiries, manager.
we'll move to questions and inquiries. And, thank you. So, any questions and inquiries from the media? No? Okay. From the general public? Tome.
I just want to say it's called, but last Wednesday when we called that special meeting, I thought it was a ridiculous waste of time, and I just want some clarification on this new meeting that we plan to call if you're going to have everybody come down and not be able to ask questions or. Like I just thought, the way things went, that you could have just had Clyde dropped off the desk and carried on with today's board meeting. So we called another special meeting. I'm wondering how that's going to proceed this next time.
That would be the way our special board meetings always proceed. We'll have an agenda. The board will have an opportunity to discuss the item for which the meeting is called. And when we're finished, then we'll adjourn the meeting.
So at a special board meeting, is it normal to adopt the agenda and go through all the procedures and stuff? Or
No,
is it different
it's different. Our board
than
procedural.
a regular meeting?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you don't have to do any adoptions of the agenda and everything like that?
No, we do. We need to do the formal parts like that. We need to adopt the agenda for sure. Those are the parts that make it an actual meeting. We didn't actually do that at our last meeting, so that was not an official board meeting per se. But I think that we would do that in the future. With respect to this, because there may be some decisions being made. We won't be just sort of receiving information. We'll be having a formal discussion and perhaps making some decisions. So it does need to be a formal meeting with the proper rules in effect, if you will.
Okay, so this time when we had the receiving of the report, it wasn't considered a special meeting?
No.
So you said it was in the thing that you were having a special meeting, but so the wording has changed then?
No, I should really apologize for my miscommunication on that. It was really just a meeting to receive the report. The board did not intend to conduct any business on that evening at all. We just wanted to have an opportunity to ask the chair of the committee some questions with regards to the report and for the public to see what questions we were asking about that. We're trying our best to be transparent in our processes, and I think that's why you're seeing Len tell us that maybe the next time we do this, it needs to be a special board meeting and it's a cleaner process, so it's easily understood for the public. And so for my error and miscommunication, I apologize.
Okay, the second part of this question is you have your agenda setting on the Tuesdays and so you put this on the agenda before you receive the report on Wednesday.
Yes.
So it's giving me the impression that you've already made the decision because you did it on the Tuesday and the report didn't even come into the building until Wednesday. So I just really it doesn't give a good impression. So unless I'm misreading it, that's what I'm seeing here. So.
I hope your impression's been changed this evening. I was at every one of the meetings, and I also had received the report in advance. And so in order to try to facilitate a conversation and to provide a prompt, I made a recommended motion to put on the agenda, and you can see exactly what happened. The board didn't agree that that was the way that we wanted to proceed, and so we didn't. So I think that's pretty fair, and they didn't agree with me, which sometimes is hard, but that's the way it is. Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Gentleman in the back?
Thank you. We spent considerable resources to prepare this report. concerned that we're wondering if the board actually read the report, or were you presented the report as a report from students?
We receive information from the Secretary Treasurer with regards to the report. Did we receive everything that you did?
Not absolutely everything, but the majority was in there.
Would it be fair to ask the board to read the report, if you like the report and
You're free to forward us whatever information you like.
Could you make
Absolutely.
a report available to the board?
Yeah.
And I have a question, with regard to the request for proposal, what's the timeline on that?
It will probably be during the summer and looking for a decision in September.
How do you expect somebody to prepare, like, it doesn't even come out, like, we had proposed and they proposed for a date to set up in September, and how do you expect anybody to come up with that? We spent considerable resources identifying the need for this. We submitted proposals. We also are a nonprofit organization, which I was told by Senator Hamilton is a kind of a I don't know, I'm looking for a requirement for a nonprofit that is part of that. It puts us in good stead, and I don't feel that we've been represented.
Well, I have to say that I think, maybe I can answer this one, that I think the board has a high regard for the Boys and Girls Club. You have done amazing work for kids in the Comox Valley. We really have a high regard for you. Yeah.
Our board has been, we're a volunteer board, we put a lot of effort into this, and we feel a little bit betrayed by the fact that we went for proposals. We spent our own resources identifying the need, the place, the electric path, the electric principle. We put all the pieces in order, and I would just like to see that
Oh, no, we absolutely recognize the extent to which that you went to make the proposal.
I know you guys get inundated with comments. That's very genuine. That's my direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Shannon.
Your chair report tonight stated that you look forward to encourage public dialogue. When I emailed you last week, you did not have the courtesy to respond other than state that we'd already spoken about the issue, even though I had additional issues. Is this how you define dialogue?
What is difficult sometimes is that when a decision is made about something, I recognize that the public may not agree with the decision that the board makes or that I make with respect to calling meetings. You did call and ask that we have a question and answer period added to the end of the agenda, and my decision was that we would not stray from the business for which that meeting was called, that we would just have the one item on the agenda where Clyde would present the report, and that was that. I communicated that information to you, and I'm sorry that you disagreed with my position on that. I thank you for coming this evening to restate your position, and I'm glad to give you an opportunity tonight to ask questions and to comment on what you've heard here. So I would love to hear any other questions that you may have for the board.
You probably know them all.
No, actually I don't. But I know that you and I have disagreed in the past couple of years on things, and that is, to be honest with you, why I look towards you to hear what you have to say, because I need to hear your perspective, or I don't have the whole picture. So thank you for persisting in coming to meetings. Shelley?
Just to follow up on Tony, thank you very much for bringing that to attention. When I came in and picked up the agenda, it says right on there, recommendation of the board, but there was no motions made or anything in regards to what I deem a very important piece of work. And I think what happened was, you're looking for that the board approves changes to just cool off at different times, which is, fun and good. We need to know that. But that document is extremely important in regards to the future of this district and our children. And with no motions made, and then it goes on the agenda, but no appropriate. I'm sorry, I just thought that was completely on the amount of board meetings that I have attended, there is certain protocols and it's detailed that responds to
This evening?
appropriately. No, last week's meeting.
So, thank you for your feedback. With respect to changes in operating times, there are strict rules in place. There's a ministerial order that refers to a section of the School Act that we have to comply with when we want to make changes to schedules, and so that's why that was on the agenda this evening and why we had to deal with it.
As an example, the other document and stuff that comes through, motions are made to accept the agenda, that wasn't done either.
Yeah, I acknowledge that there was not a properly constituted special board meeting, and I acknowledge that, and I apologize for that. Does anyone else have a question? Gentlemen?
Follow up on Mr. Foster here. James Warren, I live across from National School, and I'm looking forward to daycare for my daughter who's starting kindergarten in September. And if there's anything the board can do or staff can do to forward the RFP and have a daycare or kindergarten program in September and advise us as early as possible so we can actually make arrangements for activities in September, please do. Sounds like everything is in place, but we don't know.
We're following the same process we did in October when we asked for a request for proposals for daycare at Quinish. There's sort of questions of fairness to make sure that we're not biased, and so we're proceeding exactly the same way with respect to Aspen, and we do regret that it's going to take some time. Wish we could expedite it and make it happen right now.
Hopefully you can sort of know by
We've had a discussion with this, and I think Mr. Ibbs is aware that we would like it to proceed as quickly as we can, but no promises or anything. Sheila?
Well, I'd just like to draw your attention to the letter at the very end of the agenda. Many of you may not be here after my second, which is from the municipalities who are the leaders of the government grant so that to build community-linked partnerships, first and foremost with the municipalities but with other partners. And I'm very pleased to see that the three proposals that went forward for Cumberland, Courtney, and for Lake Trail and Richmond are were supported. And hopefully over the summer we'll all be able to start doing some work on this and get moving on the project. I think there's a big learning curve for the court to start to understand how this type of project initiatives with local partners, the schools, the opportunity to deliver other types of programs in consultation, collaboration with partners. The Lake Trail will be wanting to talk to the people at Courtney Rec about teen nights, other programming, Watchie, things for the Girls Club. And so the district, hopefully, you might bring this into the policy discussion or the community, and then the community having discussion with partners. There is something substantially different about the way you operate with partners like the Boys and Girls Club to put in place service delivery. And
sorry, can you get to a question, please?
Well, my question is,
I know we're looking
really, okay, will you seriously address incoming? I don't really want to put a lot of effort into creating opportunities where the board is going to go for a formal request for proposal basis when it is a matter of developing partnerships. And I think that, I guess my question is, do you understand the pent-up energy which is going to come in and help the district support them, and the many, many barriers that the district currently puts up to prevent that?
I think that 183 times in the past year that I've reached out to the community and I'm getting a good idea of what there is out there, and I think I speak on behalf of my fellow trustees and say that I think we are getting a good indication of that. For you personally, I'd like to thank you very much for your advocacy for community schools. It helps us to understand these things, and people like you we like to talk to and hear what you have to say to help educate us. I have 2 minutes left, and I'd like to see if anyone else has a question.
Actually, I'm Tommy Foley, Brooklyn Chair. And first off, the Brooklyn PAC would like to sincerely thank
three of the trustees here, Trustee Keaton, Trustee Bart, and Trustee Goldberg for helping us at our Brooklyn Fair. And a very big thank you for
You weren't the only one.
I think I cheated too.
But I did enjoy it. And the other is just to, as far as the CO2 testing, to keep in mind that because the Brooklyn population is split, there aren't as many students in that school, adding to carbon dioxide concerns.
Thank you. So we have time for one more quick question from anyone.
Just one question. As far as the Boys and Girls Club and that proposal, I know that we've talked about it a couple of times, but in the nature of the timeline, in order to project, like, we had already put in a quick proposal for the niche, and we never heard back from it, other than it was awarded to somebody else. Is there a criteria? Is there an actual thing that you follow when you put it out to request a proposal? Or is it just, you award it to whoever you want to, or what? Because we really need to know, because I know we hit the deadline for that one, too.
Are you okay with it?
There's a couple of criteria mentioned in there. One is the not-for-profit, preference, and then there's, sort of the history, working with kids and references and a few things like that. That would be the criteria for the most part that we would use.
But do you notify the people? Because we did not get notification. It was awarded to somebody else in commission that we were already in with the
Right.
and we had people with their kids after school.
Sure. Yeah. It comes back to the committee who looks at all proposals and makes the call. It was the finance committee.
Composed on board members?
Yes.
We've had discussions with respect to how we receive also budget proposals and have talked about improving our way of communicating with the public when they have been successful with an application, just to have the courtesy to let them know. And I think that we have some improvements to make there, and hopefully we'll look forward to doing those in the future. Okay, so thanks. So thank you very much to DPAC again for your wonderful treats. Thank you. And take a motion to adjourn, please. Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. See you all on July the 2nd.